The first day of the Amazon Summit in Belém do Pará ended with proposals to create an international environment tribunal in addition to the Amazon Research Center. The provincial candidates to the National Assembly of Ecuador began the electoral campaign on Tuesday for the general elections of August 20th. And in Niger, the military junta rejected the ECOWAS proposal to establish an advanced dialogue following threats of foreign intervention in the country. Hello, welcome to From the South. I'm Ana Rosabal from the TeleSUR studios in Havana, Cuba. We begin with the news. The first day of the Amazon Summit in Belém do Pará ended with proposals to create an international environment tribunal in addition to an Amazon Research Center. The Amazon Summit, chaired by President Luis Inácio Lula da Silva, was attended by the signatory countries of the 1978 Amazon Cooperation Treaty. In the plenary session, Lula da Silva stressed that the head of states had listened to the agreements and proposals, including the promotion of a new vision of sustainable development in the region. For his part, Colombian President Gustavo Petro proposed the creation of an international environment court. In a declaration on the Amazon Summit, Brazilian Foreign Minister Mauro Vieira stated that the meeting was productive and talked about the Balance Declaration and the positive impact it could have on the Amazon.
Today's meeting was very productive. The Declaration of Belém was approved. It has a little more than 100 paragraphs, and all they are of great interest for the Amazonian community, for education, for knowledge, for joint action against illegal trafficking of wood and minerals, science and technology, health, and all areas of interest.
Additionally, Foreign Minister Mauro Vieira referred to the mandates agreed in the summit, saying it could strengthen the Amazonian Treaty's power.
We agreed that the Amazonian Treaty must be strengthened through a series of missions. All mandates that presidents approved and this provides this treaty with a bigger muscle, the bigger power.
And also in a working meeting of the 4th Amazon Summit, Lula da Silva stressed that the event marks the beginning of a new era in which respect for indigenous people will be the central axis.
Summit, a new dream born. For a long time, the dreams of others have been imposed to us, which has apart us from our dream, our Amazonian dream.
The Brazilian leader pointed out that during years of looting the Amazon, indigenous leaders and the community in general suffered violence just for trying to protect what belongs to them.
During this time, the leaders, environmental leaders, indigenous leaders, suffered all kinds of attacks and violence just because they were trying to protect a territory that belongs to the people and has always belonged to the people.
Bolivian President Luis Arce also rejected the intervention of international enterprises in the Amazon and called for the implementation of an efficient, strong, and pragmatic multilateralism.
Therefore, we reject any kind of intervention of international enterprises or foreign countries in the Amazonas, which will endanger and affect severely the well-being of the Amazonas. That's why we need to implement efficient multilateralism that will provide for all these countries and the people who live in this Amazonic area.
President Luis Arce also stated that the care of the Amazon is of great importance for present and future generations, and also pointed out that the protection and defense of Mother Earth are two historical tasks that are necessary and cannot be postponed.
That's why our commitment to the protection of the Amazons needs to be stronger than ever. We would not hesitate to take all the necessary measures for protecting our Mother Earth. Thank you very much.
On the other hand, Suriname's Minister of Foreign Affairs, Albert Randion, highlighted the close relations between his country and the rest of the nations sharing the Amazon basin and the need to address with urgency the problems affecting the area.
We feel a deep connection, which can be considered a cultural connection with, especially with Brazil, but with the rest of the Amazonic countries. We are facing a situation right now which requires to take action immediately. We need to develop our current policies to be able to find a solution for the ecological crisis the other head states were talking about.
Let's take a short break, but remember you can join us on TikTok at TeleSUR English, where you'll find news in different formats, new dates, and more. Other studies coming up, stay with us. Welcome back. On Tuesday, the Vice President of Venezuela, Desi Rodriguez, held a meeting with the President of Bolivia, Luis Arce, in the city of Belém do Pará in Brazil, where the Amazon Summit 2023 is being held. The meeting was aimed at evaluating and strengthening the integration agenda between both nations and exchanging experiences to consolidate integrated actions of cross-border cooperation, as well as the agenda to guarantee a safe and peaceful Amazon with a more humanistic plan. The representative of both nations also touted the opportunity to strengthen the agreements that both countries already maintain in justice, information, education, health, foreign trade, science, among others. Venezuela's Minister of People Power for Foreign Affairs, Ivan Hill, met with President of Brazil, Petrobras, Jean Paul Prats, within the context of the Amazon Summit in Belém do Pará. The meeting served to share information on the world scenario and to review the potential of both countries in relation to gas cooperation and its derivatives, with a view to undertaking joint projects in favor of the people. Jean Paul Prats is a lawyer and economist with more than 30 years in the oil and gas industry, as well as renewable resources, and was a member of the legal department of Petrobras International SA. Mexican President Andrés Manuel López Obrador defended his Colombian counterpart amid the scandal he's facing after the indictment of his son and the alleged illegal finance of his campaign. During his press conference on Tuesday, the Mexican president said that he has the best opinion about Petro. He described him as a man of principle, honest, and who has a great love for the people. López Obrador added that Petro is facing a conservative reaction, media campaigns against him, and that now that he's facing a family situation, they want to diminish and undermine his moral strength.
Yes, we are going to be in Colombia with President Gustavo Petro. We are going to be with him. I have the best of opinions about him. He's a man of principle, he's honest people, he has love for the people, and he's also the first president in decades who does not belong to the conservative bloc, who has dominated for centuries in Colombia and who were the one who led that broader country into a deep crisis.
On Tuesday, the provincial candidates to the National Assembly of Ecuador began the electoral campaign for the general elections of August 20th. The provincial candidate for deputies started their campaign activities after the situation with the legal appeals of their candidacies before the electoral court was resolved. In this way, the campaign is formalized, which coincides with that of the presidential candidates beside the national candidates. The National Electoral Council certified that there are no pending appeals and that the lists of provincial assembly members are firm. In the United States, at least 2 people died. 1 million homes are being affected by the strong storms that hit the eastern part of the country. Due to the phenomenon, a 15-year-old boy died in the state of South Carolina when a tree fell on him, while 3 other 20-year-old victims died in Alabama due to a lightning strike. The National Weather Service issued a hurricane warning for Washington and surrounding areas, and declared that high winds, large hail, and tornadoes may be observed in 10 states, where approximately 29.5 million people live. The weather phenomenon that South Florida is facing could break the current record of 97 degrees Fahrenheit reached in July with a wind chill of 110 degrees Fahrenheit along the state's east coast. On the other hand, the National Weather Service warned of excessive heat until 7 p.m. local time, with height up to 115 degrees Fahrenheit possible, which is why authorities recommend drinking plenty of fluids and limiting outdoors activities. China remains on alert due to the rains that have left at least 14 people dead, in addition to dozens of swollen rivers. In the last 48 hours, more than 560 millimeters of rain fell, affecting the Mundanjiang River basin, causing human losses and incalculable material damages. More than 80,000 people have been sheltered, and emergency personnel and relief teams have been deployed in areas close to the rivers. The local government issued a flood alert and has mobilized forces to repair roads, restore electricity and communications. On Tuesday, 105 fighters battled a forest fire that has burnt for 4 days in southern Portugal, which, like neighboring Spain, is being cooled by the heat wave that has prompted widespread weather alerts. The Iberian Peninsula is bearing the brunt of climate change in Europe, with heat waves, droughts, and forest fires becoming more intense. On Monday, the temperature rose to 46 degrees Celsius in Santarém, central Portugal, a record for 2023, according to provisional data from the Meteorological Office. More than 1,000 firefighters, backed by 10 water-bomb plants for bubbling the base that has already burned thousands of hectares near Odmira, southwestern Portugal, not far from the tourist hub of the Algarve. We have a second short break coming up, but before we invite you to visit our YouTube channel at TeleSUR English. There you'll be able to rewatch our top stories, special broadcastings, and more. Hit the subscribe button and activate the notification bell to stay up to date on the world's more recent events. Final short break, don't go away. Welcome back. Turkey's President Recep Tayyip Erdogan said on Tuesday that the revival of the Ankara-EU brokered deal with Russia to allow Ukrainian grain exports depends on the fulfilling of Western countries' promises.
In the period we left behind, the principle of loyalty was unfortunately not honored. No diplomatic steps were taken to turn the positive atmosphere created by the Black Sea Initiative into a ceasefire and then into a lasting peace. As these have not been done, they are still fueling the flames. As a result of our efforts, the Black Sea Initiative, which was extended twice, prevented a food crisis that could have cost the lives of hundreds of thousands of people. We keep on establishing contacts for the re-implementation of the initiative, which was suspended as of July 17, this time by expanding its scope. During our telephone conversation with Mr. Putin last week, we had the opportunity to hear Russia's demands and expectations firsthand.
The military junta of Niger rejected the ECOWAS proposal to establish an advanced dialogue following threats of foreign intervention in the country. Military leaders assured that the request of the regional body is irritated after the sanctions imposed, which do not allow to receive this delegation in conditions of sovereignty and security. ECOWAS tried to send a delegation to Niamey City on Tuesday, prior to the meeting to be held by some countries of the bloc in Nigeria, while they will address the crisis facing Niger. The rebel military showed their unwillingness to engage in dialogue with the agency, as well as with the U.S. envoys seeking military intervention to put ousted President Mohamed Bazoum back in power. Niger's National Council for the Safeguard of the Homeland, CNSP, announced on national television the appointment of a new prime minister and a new head of the Presidential Guard.
Appointing the prime minister. The president of the National Council for the Safeguarding of the Homeland, head of state, decrees Article 1. Mr. Lamin Zain Ali Mahamam is appointed prime minister. Decree appointing a commander of the Presidential Guard. The president of the National Council for the Safeguarding of the Homeland, head of state, decrees Article 1. Lieutenant Colonel Habibu Asuman is appointed commander of the Presidential Guard.
On Tuesday, the World Health Organization has flagged a batch of contaminated common cold syrup manufactured by an Indian company after a series of warnings. The United Nations agency said the batch of the syrup branded Cold Out and found in Iraq was manufactured by Fort's India laboratory for Davline Pharma. The batch had 0.25% of the ethylene glycol and 2.1 of ethylene glycol when the acetyl safe limit for both is up to 0.10%. The inquiry concluded that the medicine had not been registered with the Medicines Control Agency before being imported as required by the regulations. The commissions also noted the urgent need to set up a quality control laboratory to carry out tests on all the medicines imported into the country. On Monday in Syria, 4 soldiers were killed and 4 others were wounded in the new Israeli aggressions against Damascus. One of numerous and repeated attacks in the context of Zionist attempts to intensify the war in Syria, as announced by Syrian authorities. Our correspondent at Damascus, Hisham Wanous, with the details.
Prominent leaders of the Arab Socialist Ba'ath Party, along with the Syrian government, denounced the world's inaction against these attacks and demanded that the United Nations and its Security Council assume their responsibilities in condemning and stopping Israeli attacks that endanger security and stability not only in Syria, but also at regional and international levels.
We denounced the persistent stance of turning a blind eye to the repeated Israeli aggressions and condemned the fact that the United Nations and its Security Council are submissive to the will of NATO and the United States, that seek to fulfill the failed plans to divide Syria, as well as the fact that the big media corporations also distort the reality of these attacks to serve the plans of NATO and Western powers.
The aggression took place a few days after the Russian and Syrian air forces had destroyed a terrorist command center in the northwestern province of Idlib, following the disclosure of extremist plans to carry out suicide attacks against the Russian and Syrian armies in the de-escalation zone in that province. An issue that, according to Damascus, proves its allegation that the Israeli occupation entity is trying through these attacks to weaken the Syrian armed forces in order to prevent a total defeat of the terrorist gangs.
These and the other aggressions are part of the Israeli reaction to the political and military power on the Syrian side to solve the crisis, and are part of the Zionist plan to hinder the Syrian efforts to eradicate terrorist gangs and to end the foreign occupation and achieve the liberation of every inch of Syrian land, either in the occupied Syrian Golan or in the eastern area on the eastern side of the Euphrates River.
The attack comes simultaneously with the mobilization of U.S. support troops to Washington's illegal military bases on Syrian soil. Invading forces which, besides protecting Daesh terrorists, stealing Syrian oil and wheat, and counteracting Russian military influence in this part of the world, are consolidating their presence in Syria, according to military experts, to defend at a given moment the Israeli occupation entity from a possible war against it, an eventuality that the peoples of the region consider inevitable and predict will include all member countries of the resistance bloc.
Hisham Wanous, TeleSUR, Damascus, Syria.
We have come to the end of this news brief. You can find this and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. And join us on social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Telegram, and TikTok. For TeleSUR English, I'm Ana Rosabal. Thank you for watching.